if you just scale during your appointments, that's all you do, an assistant will replace you. That is just the facts.
Welcome to the Spit It Out podcast. This is where we ask the hard questions about life, dentistry, and healthcare. I'm Meg, a registered dental hygienist who loves to brush, floss, and spit out the truth.
Welcome back to Spit It Out. I'm your host, Meg. Today is the first episode of Pillow Talk. I had a really nice follower suggest this series name. I thought it was so cute. And while I was thinking about it today, I was thinking that Pillow Talk episodes are going to be more uncomfortable topics that might not be super exciting to hear about, but also super important to talk about. Today, we're going to be talking about hygiene burnout, and you're probably burned out just listening to the title and reading, oh my gosh, another thing about hygiene burnout. I'm burned out just reading about it. And you know what? I don't blame you. I am too. But if we stop talking about it, who is going to talk about it? And who's going to keep getting burnt out? That's right. Us. That is right. You guessed correctly. What I'm trying to say is if no one talks about the issues going on in the hygiene world and dentistry, the issues are going to continue to persist and we will continue to suffer. So let's go on, shall we? Got my little pillow here. It says spit it out. I got my little mouth. Okay, so I'm going to have my phone out for some of this because I do have some data pulled up just to make sure I'm not misquoting anything. To start, approximately 31 to over 70% of dental hygienists report experiencing burnout, with many considering leaving the profession within 5 years due to emotional exhaustion, physical strain, and high-stress work environments. Key factors include heavy workloads, lack of support, and high rates of musculoskeletal disorders. Okay, I want to break down a couple of these things with my personal experience and experiences of my colleagues the last about 3 years of working. Emotional exhaustion. I understand this 100%. Workplace bullying in dentistry is real. I've heard in all of healthcare, especially in hospitals, it's also a normal thing. I don't know why. I will never really understand why. Workplace bullying is something like this. For example, one time a bunch of my coworkers had a big party without some of my coworkers. Only, let's say 70% of us were invited. And instead of keeping it to themselves, laughing about it, just kind of without the people who weren't invited within earshot, what happened the next 1 to 2 months after this party that everyone had such a great time at, the people who were invited, of course, they would just talk about this party in front of all of us. And they would talk about how great of a time they had, how they want to do it again. And the people who weren't invited, AKA me and this other person next to me, were kind of just like sitting there, like listening and being like, what the heck is happening? Like, why are you guys talking about something that we were obviously not invited to in front of us, and laughing and then, planning things in front of us without asking if we want to come, which was like super rude. And so it was like these 2 or 3 events that like kept happening where only some of the team was invited, but not all of it. And so it just made this really uncomfortable position for us because we were like, well, we obviously weren't invited, but you guys keep talking about this in front of us. It was exhausting and it made me feel really bad, like stuff like that is workplace bullying. Other things would be cutting your hours without communicating with you. Another example would be talking to the manager about issues instead of going up to you directly multiple times. I also worked with a coworker that instead of just coming up to me just for simple things, like very simple things, maybe something in sterilization or whatever, they would just go straight to the manager and then the manager would come talk to me. And I was like, who keeps doing this? This is ridiculous. Just whoever's tattletaling, just come up and talk to me. That was my thought. The things that whoever is telling the manager about, like, they could just tell me. It's not that deep. So things like that is definitely considered workplace bullying. I also looked up a couple other examples of workplace bullying because there are little tiny things that you might not be realizing that are happening that could be considered harassment and bullying. For example, spreading malicious rumors or gossip. 100%. No notes about that. Constant unwarranted criticism or public humiliation. Nothing beats feeling embarrassed in front of all your coworkers for no reason, for something that can be private. I've had this happen to me. It is so embarrassing. And as an adult, it's like, why are we doing this? Are we all 12 years old? Absolutely not. It's ridiculous. Yelling, swearing, or using profanity. Making offensive jokes or personal attacks. Yeah, if someone brings up something physically about you, like your hair looks bad, oh, you look so tired today, just something backhanded, unnecessary, something like, ooh, those scrubs make you look fat today, which is super crazy, but like, you never know. If that's happening to you, red flag. gaslighting or making someone feel useless. I've definitely had this before. I would email HR very simple questions when it comes to wages, production, all numbers questions. But instead of getting a simple answer back, I would get these long-winded emails that did not make any freaking sense at all. And they would come in and be like, we need to communicate better. In my head, I was like, I thought I was communicating perfectly fine, but now I feel like maybe I'm not communicating perfectly fine because I just got a novel sent by you about a simple question. And now I'm very confused because I didn't think it was such big of a deal to ask this question, but I guess it was. Stuff like that, to where you're second guessing things. Or, for example, one time I needed more time for a patient and I was talking to the front desk. I was like, hey, I don't know why my appointment times are getting cut down. I need more time for this patient. They're special needs. They need more attention, yada, yada, yada. And the front desk worker was like, well, that's all the time that you're allowed. That's all the time that they give you. It's always been like that. And I was just like, who? What are you talking about? Who are you talking about? No answer. But that's all the time that they give you. That's just how it is. That's the amount of time you get. And I was just sitting here like, what are you talking about? Who is telling you this? And I literally asked about 3 times, who is saying this? Who is they? And I would not get an answer. And so to me, that's gaslighting. It's like, well, you're crazy for even asking. I'm being just told to do my job. And I'm like, well, who's telling you that? Because last time I checked, I was the one doing this, not anybody else. So stuff like that, to where you can't get a straight answer and they're just over explaining something, is so unnecessary and toxic. It should not be like that, just so you know. Social and isolation bullying, kind of like I mentioned, deliberately ignoring or giving the silent treatment. When I quit one of the offices that I worked at, I was given the silent treatment by one of my colleagues, and I've realized that person did it to every single person that put in their 2 weeks. I have no idea why, but it makes you feel so horrible. And you spend all this time with these people, and then as soon as you put in your 2 weeks, it's like, oh, you don't exist to me anymore. But for those 2 weeks, who does that? That's so messed up. Excluding someone from team events or decisions, creating exclusive cliques or ostracizing individuals, just going back to what I was saying earlier. A couple other things just to mention are sabotaging work or taking credit for others' ideas, withholding vital job-related information or giving the wrong information. I've also had this happen to me, to where I was told I was given a certain amount of PTO, for example, which was incorrect. I was also told that I got a certain amount of bonus money every month, which was also incorrect. I didn't even know that one of the offices I worked at was a DSO or a corporate office. Had no idea when I was getting hired. No one told me. That was crazy. I feel like, I don't know if that's necessarily called bullying, but it was definitely withholding information and lying and fraud. So don't agree with that, because when we found out the truth, it really was not fun to hear it, because we were like, oh, we were lied to this whole time, and we were told the wrong information this whole time. That was not fun. If that's happening to you, run. Run, 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 run. Excessive monitoring or micromanagement. Micromanaging is the worst. I feel like everyone who's listening probably knows what micromanaging is, but just for example, when I was temping one time, I was told that after SRP, they take post-op x-rays and they reprobe. Totally fine. I can do that. No big deal. I pretty much was going to do that anyway. So I finished the SRP on this patient and I did everything they asked. It was totally fine. And I was walking up to see the dentist just to let her know, hey, I'm just done. I just want to let you know, some of the codes were changing, just to be transparent, right? And as I'm walking up, I just hear one of the hygienists to my right call out and be like, did you take post-op x-rays? And I'm like, yes, literally just like that. And she's like, did you reprobe? And I'm like, yes. I'm like, oh my God, are you my mother? I know how to do my job. I'm good. So stuff like that is just so obnoxious, because it's like, do you not respect me? And you can take that with a grain of salt. I know some people will consider it a different way, but the tone of voice I was also given was not nice. And these hygienists that I was temping with, who were there full time, didn't even say hello, didn't even say thanks for helping out, even though I was definitely giving them help the whole day. And it was just the attitude. I was like, you guys are not friendly and I do not vibe with you. So I didn't end up working there. That was just one of the reasons why. But that's probably the end of this segment when I'm going to talk about emotional exhaustion. Let's move on to physical strain. I see a lot of the time in comments when it comes to hygiene videos, how much people's back hurts, how much people's tailbone hurts, their neck hurts, their arm hurts, their wrist hurts. And I get a little peeved by it, because I do think that we work in a profession about preventing disease and preventing issues with people. But a lot of hygienists do not take care of themselves very well, and they do not prioritize ergonomics and physical exercise. That is a hot take. I want you to hear me out though. A lot of the hygienists that I have personally met the last 3 years do not prioritize their health. They do not prioritize their diet, their exercise, or their strength. And those are the 3 things that really make up the epitome of preventing back, neck, and shoulder pain and wrist pain and everything. I work so hard on improving all of those things just to make sure I don't walk out of the office in pain. That's not something you want to be doing. And it's going to lead to burnout if you're not taking care of yourself. And I don't think a lot of people like to put that responsibility on themselves, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to take responsibility for your own self. I know people have jobs. I have a job. I know people have kids. I don't have kids. However, even a little bit of weightlifting, walking, stretching, seeing a physical therapist for preventative exercises, anything, even buying ergonomic loops, buying a saddle chair, standing up, all of those things, little by little, can help improve those issues that I hear that people struggle with all the time. There's also wrist braces that I previously made a TikTok about, educating people on the way you sleep can also impact your risk of carpal tunnel. A lot of people truthfully just do not take into account all of the little things that you can do to prevent and help pain. So that's my hot take on that. Let me know what you think. I'm a huge proponent of taking responsibility for your own actions. And I do think being physically capable of taking care of yourself is super important for every human being out there within your own capacity. High stress work environments is next. I've been here. It sucks. And this is mostly at those offices that are just so high in production. Pro females, we're talking double column hygiene. I do not agree with any of these. It does not give you enough time to provide excellent care. It makes you just be a little robot and bounce between rooms, and you do not create that solid relationship with the patient, go through every single piece of our education that we are taught to do. I think that reducing all of your time to simply scaling wastes the 4 years of education that you invested in. It wastes the patient's time because all they're doing is getting a code, which at this point assistants will be able to do. And if you're not using your education to the fullest, if you're not using your education to the fullest of its capabilities, you are wasting it. And I'm taking all of this from my friend Matthew, who is the hygienist on Instagram, I believe. And he made a great point about how if you just scale during your appointments, that's all you do, an assistant will replace you. That is just the facts. And if you are one of those hygienists that you are not talking about education, you are not talking about periodontal disease, you are not educating your patient, you are not going over their medical history, taking blood pressure, you are not sitting the patient up and walking them through home care techniques, nutrition counseling, tobacco cessation, all of the things that we are educated to do, you are not going to be around much longer because OPAs will do that just scaling part all day. Because if that's all you're doing, you can teach a monkey how to scale. You can teach a monkey how to super gingerly scale. Because if that's all you're doing, sorry, you're out the door. But if you are using your education, which I encourage you to do, don't take this like I'm trying to be mean to you. I'm trying to encourage you with passion to use your education because that's what we have. That's all we have. And if we're showing patients that scaling is all that we're worth, that is all that they will think we are worth. Just keep that in mind. And if you're working at an office that is so busy, forcing you to do shorter appointments, double patients, working in these conditions where all you have time to do is scale, it's time to move on. That is not going to be beneficial for you. It's not going to be beneficial for your patients. I left an office like that and I'm so thankful. Another thing I've noticed is workplace culture. The office I work at now, I don't think we have much of a workplace culture because we only have 4 employees. But at other offices that I've been at with a bigger staff, the best offices I've been to actually prioritize investing in workplace events and culture and gifts and just showing appreciation physically and verbally. I think all offices should do that if it's within their budget. Even paying bonuses and increased wages, giving a 3% raise every year to your employees really makes a difference and improves retention rate. One of the reasons why I was burned out previously is that there was so much turnover at the offices that I've worked at in the past to where by the time I left, 90% of the staff had overturned. Training new people constantly is something that's overlooked, and it definitely It definitely creates a burnout environment because repeating the same thing to 5 different new assistants, 2 different new hygienists, front desk people over and over and over again, it's exhausting. It really is. And when you could be doing things to fill your cup, you're constantly filling other people's cups that overturn so fast that by the time the person learns the thing, you have to redo it. A lot of assistants, I think, probably can resonate to that because when assistant turnover is high and you have to work as a team, if it's just you two and one doctor, for example, or 3 assistants and 2 doctors, you guys are flipping, you guys have to be on the same page. And it's really difficult to do that if you are constantly getting new assistants because one, let's just say the pay is too low, workload's too high, all of those reasons I mentioned earlier are happening. Assistants and hygienists, they're not going to want to work in an environment like that. That's just point blank. You cannot underpay your workers and hope that they meet their daily maximum to get their little tiny minuscule bonus. You don't want that. You should be paying a higher hourly wage and just letting things flow naturally and not making an environment that stresses people out every day. High stress work environments do not create happy employees. Let me tell you that. Another thing I wanted to mention that can contribute to burnout and just overall workplace stress is when you have to call out if you're sick or you have something come up, and let's say your workplace is not supporting you or they make you feel bad, I'd also call that a form of gaslighting and manipulation because it doesn't make you want to come back. Like, who takes a sick day feeling horrible already and then feels guilty about it because their employer is like, oh, that sucks. Well, maybe you can help us find someone to replace you for the day. No, I'm sick in bed dying. Like, that's horrible. One more thing when it comes to ergonomics and longevity is one I wanted to bring up, especially. What I like to think about it is I would rather make a little less money now, but be able to work 5 or 10 more years down the line because long term, I'll make more money and I won't be hurt as much with musculoskeletal disorders, if that makes sense. If I work really hard right now to improve all of those things that I mentioned before, my strength, my posture, my ergonomics, I will be able to work much longer and my lifestyle is going to be a lot easier to live because I'm not going to be hurting every day and going to physical therapy and going to the chiropractor and getting surgery done because I wore out all of my joints. You have to think about it like that too. We talk about longevity with our patients, but you have to think about yourself. You're the one working on your patients. And if you're overworking yourself or you're not investing in yourself, you're not going to be there long enough to even see them in 10 years. Changing new offices is also very difficult, especially if you're a new grad or just, I would say, anybody. When I went from my office of 2 years to a brand new office, I basically had to teach every single patient for probably 3 to 4 months how to brush and floss properly and just updating all of their perio history, better x-rays. I had to get everything kind of just back to the standard of care because, when patients don't see a hygienist that's consistent for a while, things get slipped, or if people are temping, or maybe the hygienist they had seen maybe weren't doing their job correctly just by chance, you have to kind of clean up after them. And I say that in quotes because it doesn't sound nice to say, but at the same time, there are situations like I was in, I was like, okay, I just have to get through the next 3 to 4 months. And now that it's been like 7 months at my new office, all of my patients are kind of up to speed and it's a lot less emotionally exhausting trying to go through brushing, flossing all the time because now we can talk about other things like occlusion and night guards and airway and nutrition and tobacco, which is great. Just know that if you are changing offices anytime soon, you might run into that and you just have to give it a little grace period because I have never walked into an office to where I've been like, wow, every single patient knows exactly what to do. And, everyone has a different style of teaching as well. So these patients also have to get used to you and the way you teach. So keep that in mind. Okay, everybody, I think this is the end of the first episode of Pillow Talk with Meg. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to press the follow button so you get notifications for the next episode. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.